So last time I made a video on all the VNs that came out in 2021, or at least all the ones that I thought weren't all like, oh, these are just for porn and anything else, right? And I think it was like around 50 VNs or something like that, maybe 48, who knows. This one is all the VNs I did read. Some of them are really fun, some of them are very average, and some of them have potential, and that's what 6P means. Whereas like, yeah, it still wasn't that great, but if there was a couple of changes, I'd see it as a 7 or an 8. So let's say like No Mori Dreamers, right? That had potential. If it just stopped after the common route, I would put that as like a 7. And if they did some more changes to it, where I think it was like chapter 3 was kind of crappy, but you know, if there was some more changes to it, then yeah, I'll actually put it as an 8 because it was interesting. It's not anything new, but it's not common enough that I got bored on it. Like another one would be like Trinoline. Trinoline's another one where if they just focus on Chirone and just ignored, I already forgot their fucking names, it's like Yuri and Sarah, I believe. If they just threw them off, and I actually like Yuri's route, even though it's kind of toxic at times, but if they just Chirone's route and then add like another 2 or 3 hours after her epilogue on what she's doing, yeah, I'd see it as a 7. But then there's things like Yukikoi Melt, where it's very average. And at the beginning I thought I was like, oh, this one's gonna be a 7 because actually it wasn't interesting, but it was fun. It was a good winter VN for the first 2 routes. And then I hit the other 2, which is I forgot their names, but I think one's Kanan, which is one I was interested in, and I forgot the other one, but it's like the Ice Queen or whatever. And they were boring as fuck. And especially when the Snow one, actually, both of them had things where she's very family oriented, but you never see her family at all. It's like, why'd you even do that? And the other one does have family shit. And it's like, oh, I would like this one instead. Except it was like one scene and it was really boring. And it was set up correctly. It would have been done well. It just was not. This is one was like, oh, potential or not. But this one is like, no, it's hard to do. It's still a moik. It's still average. Majikoi A4 is kind of the same thing where it introduces a lot of the characters from the west side that you see in S that you don't see anymore for the most part. And it was fun looking at them, but it wasn't as much as I wanted. And the routes themselves were kind of whatever. Overall, it's like, I had fun. I could see someone putting this as 7 as just like, oh, just for the comedy alone, it'll be 7, but it wasn't as much for me. A lot of it's based on comparing with the other Majikois. Like, yeah, this one isn't as good as A1 or A3, I believe. Then you have like Onigokko. Onigokko is very it is like the most average shit you have, where yeah, it had interesting plots. Some of the voice actors actually really well done. I think it was Momo, the one in the center. She had really good scenes. But the thing is, this is based on a true route, and the true route itself was the worst of the 4, and that's kind of weird. You can say like if it was done better, had potential for it, but overall it's like, this is very 90s. This is like a 90s anime type of thing. It's like a lot of the jokes you have in there is like, I will see this everywhere else. It's not like, oh, this is amazing. And I know this is older, so it's like one of those things like maybe they weren't as cliche back then, but I'm pretty sure it was. And then you have like Meteor Pendulum, I believe what's called. And I'm pretty sure this is a porn game, I'm not even sure, but I bought it, was cheap. And I think it's like one of the characters, yes, it has almost no plot to it, but there's still some plot lingering in. But one of the characters is actually really funny, so that's why I have the 6 instead of 5. Honey's the other one where I'm like, is this a porn game or not? Because there is like 8 hours worth of plot before all that happens. And if I'm being honest, I picked it for the teacher. The other 2, whatever, like the main girl, the one in the middle, is Garbo. The other one is fine, but I did it for the professor. Then there is, I forgot the name of it. It's just Koikari, right? Koikari and Sugar Style are both. Sugar Style's from SME and Koikari is from it's from Acid Project. Both of these are fine. As just Moe games itself, they're both like 7s. See, the thing is, Sugar Style is SME. SME is a lot better in terms of writing, where the jokes land better. While Acid Project is very cringy, but the voice acting always carries it. Like in this one, it's the twins, right? It's like the routes themselves are boring as hell. The routes are worse than normally what SME is. Even the other ones, like the Sankaku one, same thing. It's all just about the stupid memes and the cringy shit. But the voice acting is good. Like I said, the twins in this one, and the other one I believe was the senior route. In this one, it's Emmy, who's always crying and it's fucking hilarious, or the twins who are always screeching and that's hilarious. Like, the good route itself is Tsubaki, which is the teacher, right? And it's not that great, but compared to the other shitty ones, it was fine. It was fun, but she's the least memorable in that case because she is not retarded. Sugar Style is just normal. It's very pure ass moe game, and it's fine. It's fun to read. It's a good read. It's just like, I think it's you'd have more fun if you just like, I like this character, I finish the route, and then I leave. If you do all four, you get fatigued because it's a lot of the same again. Like for me, I think it was Ichigaki is her name, the upper left. She was my favorite, and also the first route I did. I thought I wouldn't like her that much, and that's why I picked it. But actually, it was actually my favorite. And the further I go, the more it was basically a place of like 1, 2, 3, 4 on quality, and they're not even that bad. Just to me, it's like I hit the best one by accident. But in all the rights, they could be 7s. Just for me, they're 6. And then there's Riddle Joker, which it's like here and here, where it's like Ubisoft has this problem where they introduce an interesting premise and then really doesn't do anything with it. Or if it does, it's like a 20 to 80%. It's like 20%, oh, here's the premise, and the other 80% is the girls. And you know, everybody's buying these things are specific, like, well, I want the girls. And I'm like, I kind of wanted, you know, 40-60 or something like that. It's like, no, you don't get much. Like Draku Wright is probably the closest one. Even then, it's like I could have said some of the characters and it would have been fine. But it's such an overhaul that you have to do. Yeah, I'm just gonna put it at a 6. And at the same time, I'm thinking about it. Yeah, this is actually, if they just fixed the true route, made it better, I think I would have a whole what's it called? My mood on it would be a lot better on it. Because I did have fun with the other routes. It just hurt. When you end and it's not that good, it's a complicated thing I wrote about before, and it's like you have to start out well and you have to end out well. You can be forgiven or just pass it off if your beginning sucks. But if everything is good and your ending sucks, you leave with a bad attitude or a bad mindset for it. You could have like a 90% great novel and then the last 10% sucks, you come out negatively on it. And it sucks. And it's also the other way around. It's like, I hate when people say, oh, this is a good movie, and I look at it, it's like 80% of this sucks. It's only the last 20% of the finale was amazing. That's still not a good piece of media. It was fine. I got my payoff, but it wasn't done well. It got lucky enough. And that's Onigokko, if they landed well, because it did piece things from different routes together well. It sucked at the end. One I think most people wouldn't get would be Enigma. People that see what I read were like, oh, Enigma, that's like a 7 for you. And I'm like, that's an 8. In terms of writing, to me, it's an 8 and enjoyment. But if I was just completely biased, I would put it as a 9. It doesn't deserve a 9. It's not as interesting as it, but I just liked it so much. It was never a point where anything ever dragged. Sure, there was like 4 bad endings that could be removed, but even those was kind of like, oh, that's funny, I guess. Like, everything was done well. It was just not a high ceiling type of thing. Like Muramasa for me is the 9, right? Some people put it as a 10, but for me, I'm like 8 or 9 because it's written really well. But there's parts that dragged for me. But the highs are so much fucking higher. Enigma, like Muramasa's highs are 10s. They're far and few in between, right? But they were 10s. Enigma was always like a 9 overall or an 8 overall. It was really good for me. But I can't say outside of bias, like, oh, that's a 9. It's like, no, it's not. But I like that a lot. It's like how people put out Aokana as a 10, right? To me, it's a 9. But people put it as 10 because, again, it has no drag. Everything reads fine. Yes, there was some issues, and that's why I'm putting it as a 9. But outside of that, everything was amazingly well done. You know, and it depends on the person, I guess. Like, if you really hate sports, yes, Aokana would be a lot lower. But if you like the thing like Canvas 2, like other VNs do, where, yes, there's routes, but the main focal point is the main character and how he's developing, it's very interesting to me. Like Musicus. Musicus is another one where, like, to me, the main character, and I even forgot her name because she was so unimportant to me. Hanai, I forgot. forgot her fucking name was Hanai. It's the Hanai sister. She was so unimportant to me. And the whole thing is like, who did I like in this one? And it was like, oh, it's Kei. Kei and the Hanai brother. Ozaki and the other girl, which I forgot her name now. It's the one at the bottom left. She was not in the routes at all. She was in one route, and it was like the one that's not about music, or it's not the one about touring. And I felt like she should have been in every route, or at least included after the second route, basically starting the third route. Or I think it's called Route D. It would have been a lot better because she's a great character to use. It's just not being used at all. But, you know, it's like, I liked Route 1, and I think it's called Route D. And then there's 2 and 3, and 3 I think is like the true ending. I didn't hate the true ending, it was fine, but compared to D, it was like, this is whatever. Parts of it I didn't like, but other parts I did like because Yagihara's back. And Yagihara is finally having his own conclusion, right? And it's like, oh, this is great. So I like Musicus because I like that ending because of Yagihara. I did not like it because of Hanai's sister. There's even a part where the was back and talks to the main character, and I really like that part. I just didn't like her. her parts were the boring parts. She was probably the most boring part in the VN for me. And it's weird because her concepts are good, but I attribute that to the K again, because K's also going through that, so it's like, whatever. So that's why it's an 8. I liked it a lot. It just, there was a lot of issues I had with it. And then you have like Soundless. Yeah, put it as a 7. The art is shit, but it's also done by like one guy, and it's not original. I'm pretty sure I read like 2 novels within it. I think there's a movie, I think it was called The Village. It's kind of like The Village, but it was cool. It was a nice read. Just some Dempa shit where, hey, you're in this one town and everybody fucking hates the main character because she's, I forgot what she was. She wasn't cursed, but it's basically cursed. She's tainted, I guess. You know, she's like the main person to bully. She's fucked up all the time, and someone comes in and helps her out, but it's also about fucking her up. And it's the last 10% was very vital to the plot itself, but it's also the part where it's like, whatever. I like the other parts. I feel like after 2/3 of it, it was getting rushed. If they add like another 2 hours to it, I would have liked it more. But it was actually a really fun read, and it's to me, it's interesting based on the background stuff, where it's like, oh, it's made by one guy. It's still done well. I forget what this one's called. Iwaihime. Iwaihime has potential. I think a lot of the issues is probably with the company, because they got the Higuarshi guy, but the store is like 20 hours, and Rio 7 doesn't do 20 hours. It's usually a lot longer, because this whole concept half the time is like, oh, it's either looping or multiple chapters of different phases or different generations, right? So like Higurashi and Yumineko are like looping, but then there's Rose Gun Days where it's like, oh, this is about these people, now it's about this group, now it's about this group, and then they join at the end. Iwaihime is more like Rose Gun Days, but it has looping sections, except the looping sections make no sense, and that's why it's down here. If it actually fixed it, it would have been fine. And then they added the DLC, and the DLC is shit, because I don't even know where to even put it in the timeline, because it doesn't make sense. Because like parts of it's like, well, it's a lot of spoilers, so I wrote about it, and I complained all about it there, so you can just go there. But it had potential. It's like, if they just fixed up the plot holes, and they're not like, oh, little nitpicks like I do with Muramasa. It's like, no, it's huge ass plot holes. If they fixed it, I would put it as like a 7, maybe even an 8, because the first chapter I found is really good. It's one of those VNs where the voice acting is well done for the most part. The art is amazing. The art's actually really good in this one. It's crazy. Except their facial expressions aren't that good. But the clothes are, I don't know why I like the clothes so much. I'm pretty sure I talked about it in its own video as well. I was like, oh, look at these folds, look at these creases, it's great. But outside all that, it's the last 2, where Mamiya has a lot of issues, but it was still a fun read. I felt like the worst thing it has, it drags down a lot. It's you do the 4 routes, and then you do the 4 routes again, but it's like, well, it's a little bit different now. You have more information, and things, they're not completely the same. It's the same characters again, and it's like, all right, this is kind of boring, because a lot of it, the themes are a little bit different, but you can assume what's happening. And a lot of the issues I have with this is like, maybe if you weren't forced to read all of them, because a lot of them aren't necessary, especially when there's 4 other characters that are also really interesting, and they're kind of optional, and I think you can only pick one at a time. You actually have to replay it to read the other ones. And to me, they're more interesting, but they're more interesting because, well, it's only one time, and it's actually much shorter, while the other ones you have to do 2 times. It's fucking whatever. And then there's Higuarshi, which is the last one, which I actually have issues with it. I don't know if to put it to 7 or an 8, because I think a lot of the issues I have with it is based on the looping thing, and it's hard to fight, where there's a lot of slice of life stuff in it, and it's important to juxtapose when everything goes down to shit, right? The issue with normal novels, or even just normal VNs, where when it goes to shit, it stays in the shit until the finale, and then it's resolved. In this one, it goes back to the slice of life eventually, because, well, it's looping. It's like, oh, to me, I felt like, why was there 2, or I forgot if it was 2 or 3 games in chapter 1. It could have been 1, it explains what you do and how you're having fun with the friends, and be over with, but no, it just continues, like, you don't need this. In chapter 2, it's actually a lot less, but again, because you already saw that, but now you're back into it, and then K was kind of dumb in this one. But then chapter 3 is so fucking amazing for me, right? I liked it a lot. To me, chapter 3 was the 10. If you put just chapter 3 alone, I'll put it as the 10. It was great. Even the slice of life stuff was very small compared to the other 2, and I guess it makes sense because it is chapter 3. But it's like little nitpicks where it's like, oh, this is kind of dumb. This is dragging on, because a lot of it is dragging on, and that's why I'm not putting as a 9. And even having some trouble with an 8, because, like, well, Enigma, while plot-wise isn't as amazing, I had no trouble reading it. It was fun to read altogether. It had action, it had crazy shit hit the fan in that one too, but it worked out fine. But yeah, I'll keep it as an 8. And while I'm thinking about it, I just pure Moe, yeah, that's a 7 too. But its own base. Because even if it's all Moe, it's written well, and the characters themselves are fine. And I just don't want to put Sugar Style and Koikari the same, because I felt like Sugar Style is better. Sugar Style is also better than Riddle Jokers as well. And this is a list based on without any bias at all. Now, if you add with bias, so it's like, we'll take out emotion and the highest points, things like that. Actually, I changed my mind. Let's say highest moments here and here. Yeah, that's how it's. That's when it's and it's more organized. It's probably like that. Oh, there you go. Person's here. Alright, that is highest moments. And that is Route D, Chapter 3. The puzzle, the fucking puzzle. The last fight, I guess, when you say. This one is like Chapter 8. This is the finale. Oh, the finale was. No, hell no. The finale was like here. Now, this is best moments. Also, this has a really good scene in it. And this is moved down here.